All right, I'll let some people come in. We'll relax, get going, get into it all. Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Miami Hurricanes Call-In Show Live. I'm your host, Jaden Gonzalez. Happy 305 Day to anyone that is celebrating. Like myself, happy 305 Day here in Miami. It's a big day for recruiting. It's a big day to be out here in Miami for for today. Again, not a whole lot going on as we're getting closer and closer into fall, into spring camp season, into more access, more getting to see what everything looks like. But it is 305 Day, which means obviously it's a massive recruiting day. We'll get into it a little bit. Obviously it's a call-in show. I do want to hear from you guys. The link is in the chat. I want to hear what you guys have to say, no matter what. So please click on the link if you want to talk about anything, whether it be what the future of the team looks like, how we can win the ACC, schedule, recruiting, whatever it may be. I'm here for it all. I'm open for it all. But we'll get into it right now as we wait for anyone to call in, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the recruiting stuff that I saw today. Miami, we kind of mentioned it about some of the guys that Miami were going after on Monday's show with Shea. Wide receiver Nick Lanier was someone that Miami was really heavily going after. He's someone that wants to make a spring commitment. Miami is, I believe, the leader in the clubhouse for that guy from Miami, Carroll City. That's a guy that Miami's looking after a lot. There's 3-star cornerback Sherrod Gordine and Plantation edge Meshi Dobson, who may reclassify 2027. Some of these guys that are leaning towards Miami, or Miami's really pushing or getting into very heavily. Some guys that are being talked about in terms of, as well, with Fabian Upshaw being a part of the new class, the new running backs coach. And we'll talk about obviously the tight end coach in a second. But there were reports that Upshaw and Miami were targeting or setting to host prospect Myson Johnson Cook from Illinois, I believe, and then Buffalo prospect Elijah Kimball. So there's a couple of guys that Fabian Upshaw's already targeting, despite his NFL background, that he's already starting to start working into for Miami as they host these guys. There's a lot of guys that Miami's already looking at. I'm not big on recruiting. I just know kind of some of the names and what they bring and who these guys are necessarily. But it's nice to just kind of keep you guys in touch on recruiting, what's going on, who's looking where. And one thing you can kind of guarantee about Miami's class is that they're doing so good in all these different things recruiting wise. So, and let's talk about it, Falconer. Yes. Shout out Canes basketball. Shout out to Jay Lucas. The Jay Lucas era is here. It's so much fun to watch. What a great year that they've done. I believe it's the most wins ever, or maybe the tied for the most wins ever by a Miami head coach. I believe it's one of the best debut seasons ever by a Miami head coach. Shout out Jay Lucas. What they're building over there in basketball is unbelievable. Again, I did say this, that I think there's so much momentum coming in from football that allows for basketball and baseball. I know baseball had a bad weekend, but they're still top 25 ranked. Basketball looks great right now. Number 22 in the country. They keep winning. A huge win against SMU last night. Currently projected in that 7 to 8 range, I believe. That'd be awesome. I would love to see them as a 7 seed. I plan to head to cover their March Madness games. I'm very excited to see them more in action. There's a buzz right now on the Miami basketball team because they're having fun. They're a good team. They're very fun to watch. And shout out the basketball team. We can talk about basketball if we want to. I love what they're doing. I love what Malik Renew and Trey Donaldson and Uday. They're all so much fun. They're starting to learn how to hit the three again. Things are looking really good over there. Very happy for those guys. And as I said this already, but I love looking at what I really do believe that there's so much of an influence, I guess you could say, of what football does that kind of leads to the rest of the sports. So when one does really well, the other ones do really well. And I think it's great. I think it's a really big positive. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for athletics. The better athletics are, the better it is for the university. More people want to come to the U. People want to donate to the school. Like everything looks better and is better when athletics is on a roll. And this is one of the best years you could probably have for athletics, considering what the football team did and what the basketball team is currently doing right now. And hey, well, even what baseball could do, being projected potential for at least to make it to Omaha or something of that nature. But yeah, recruiting. Again, we'll get more in touch with it as we get closer and closer into spring ball and when spring recruits start happening. Miami's handing out certain recruits and offers right now. I'm not the most in touch and in tap with that. There's some other people that are really great at that stuff. But what I can tell you about is Miami's new tight end coach, Mike Vitti, someone that I am actually super excited that Miami's bringing over. I think he is a fit, is one of the best fits you could probably have for a Miami guy at all. I think it's I see that's another one. Club hockey. I don't know necessarily if that's true. If club hockey will make a leap to D1. One of the issues with that is I might have to be an issue with Title IX that if you bring in another women's sport, have to bring in another men's. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but they're really good. We were I work for the school newspaper. We were covering them a lot. They're really good. They won, I believe a couple of years ago, they won their championship. Men's hockey too, really good. I think UM athletics everywhere right now is doing really well. We have Olympians in swim and dive and swimming and all those kind of aquatic events. We have people there, track and field. We've had people everywhere. I think athletics is in a great spot right now, and we're just going to continue to build off of it. I think football's energy, what they bring, helps everywhere else, and I think it's almost like a positive feedback loop. And yeah, Falcon, I will be at the spring. I should be at the spring game. My plan is to go to the spring. My playing game is to go to every March practice they allow us to, all the media, whatever they allow the media to go into for March practices, whatever info they have, whatever content we get, I will share it with you guys on this page, on this platform. And then hopefully for the spring game as well, be able to give you guys what I see. Probably won't be able to do the same for summer ball, but definitely will be able to for the spring game, spring practices, anything of that nature. I definitely will get you guys on any of the information that you guys want. The guys that are practicing, what you guys see. I'll give you as much information as I'm allowed to hand out. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Mike Vitti, the new tight ends coach. I love the move for Miami. I think so obviously he's replacing Cody Woodiel. Woodiel was the tight ends coach for 3 years. He's now at Ole Miss as the tight ends coach and co-offensive coordinator. Wish him well, but I'm happy for Mike Vitti. I think Mike Vitti is a guy that Miami fans are going to like a lot. I think he kind of fits that what Miami loves of the trenches and that kind of trench warfare. And he comes from a perfect school in the Army that, when you think about the Army, what do you think about? You think about the run. They ran the triple option. They've been running the triple option for years now. They have the best run game ever, every single year, averaging nearly 300 rushing yards a game. Their tight ends, their offensive line, they block. They block, they block, they block. That's all they do. That's their main goal is block. Run game, whatever they do pass, they don't really pass. That's what they do. He is a West Point grad, played fullback at the Army for, I believe, all 4 years, got 4 varsity letters and a team captain. Total military guy. After he graduated from West Point, he was stationed in Oklahoma and Colorado, and then he served in combat for Afghanistan as a platoon leader. He's a true military guy from the start. He then, after finishing his service, he went to be an assistant with Army, started as a director of high school and alumni relations, then was the fullbacks coach for 6 years, and then the O-line coach for the last 4 years. As the O-line coach, he led Army to the Joe Moore Award, given to the best offensive line in college football in 2024. And in 2019, he was named the American Football Coach Association's Assistant Coach of the Year. A lot of Army fans. I'm from New York. I'm not actually really close. I'm like about 30, 40 miles from West Point. So I do grow up around a lot of Army fans. A lot of them saw this guy, Mike Vitti, as the replacement eventually, whenever Jeff Monken, the current head coach, whenever he would retire, that he seemed to be kind of the replacement for that. And what I believe that Vitti will bring is the blocking that I'm not sure necessarily that Miami's was lacking in blocking all season long. I can't tell you that. But if you think about what Miami, if you could change one play from the national championship game against Indiana, everyone would mention something involving a tight end and blocking. Alex Bowman missing the block against Indiana on the punt that turned into the block punt touchdown, a play that I don't want to talk about a lot, but that play, which ultimately ended up being the deciding factor in Miami's loss. Special teams lost them, lost Miami that game. Him missing that block punt touchdown with Bowman missing the block, I imagine something that is scarred in Mario Cristobal's brain for eternity. And what does he do when the current tight ends coach leaves? He brings in an offensive line coach on the team that ran the ball more than anyone in college football. And you bring in a guy who's going to be, in my opinion, probably should be an elite guy for run blocking, or for whoever is going to be run blocking, whoever will be there in the tight end position, which I will be talking about in a little bit. What the tight end position kind of can look like at the moment, because it's one of the weird positions that we have where I really had high expectations and high hopes for them after a really awesome 2024. Elijah Arroyo was incredible. He was a true wide receiver essentially as a tight end. He was so much fun to watch. Him and those Cam Ward, just post routes or just a go route. Essentially, Cam Ward, Elijah Arroyo worked so well, worked really often, and then having a freshman Elijah Lofton kind of being the tight end too, and kind of playing a pretty integral role as a freshman. You thought year two, oh, the tight end play should still be really good. Honestly, if you were to say what one of the weak points was of that Miami team last year, the tight ends. It was not very reliable. They weren't really trustworthy. They were guys that you were easily, I wouldn't say replaceable, but they weren't necessarily the position that, of Miami's offense. They were definitely the worst of Miami's offense was the tight end group. And you're expecting or you're hoping that you can get a little bit more of what 2024 brought with that tight end room, mainly because of what Elijah Arroyo did, a second round pick in the NFL. It's kind of hard to replace that, and they didn't really replace it last year. They got to find a way to, do something this year where the tight end room is going to be at least a little bit more than a decent room. It was almost a nothing room essentially. When watching that tight end group, it wasn't great. There wasn't a lot that you could kind of hang your hat on and be like, well, this guy's a great tight end. Not really. And again, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but there's a lot of things that if you wish you could solve from that offense. Like the offense, the receiver room was great. The offensive line was the best in the country. The running back room was fantastic. Carson Beck was pretty good. The tight end room was the one you were like, they kind of were underwhelming over the course of the year. But you're really hoping that Mike Vitti can at least transform you for one thing, which is the ability to block. And that's something that is going to be a huge advantage that Miami's going to have. They already dominate the trenches under Mirabal and Cristobal, Dawson. Bringing in Mike Vitti only emphasizes that and what Miami kind of has instilled, that trench warfare, that trench kind of style of we want to dominate you, inside the line of scrimmage. That's what I think Mike Vitti can help with. I think he only adds to that group, and he inherits a nice tight end group that has a lot of potential. Some guys that are good blockers, others that are really good receiving threats that I think can have a really great year. So let's get into it right now. I mean, look, I'll post the link into the chat again. Let me let you know that Miami's according to FanDuel, Miami has a plus 1,400 to win the national championship game next year. I know it's obviously a little bit early, but hey, what Miami's doing, I think what they continue to do recruiting, what they continue to do with development and the guys they have, it's not too early to be thinking about getting their get back and getting back to the natty right now. But let's talk tight end room. I've been doing this the last couple of weeks. I did cornerbacks, DB room last week, and I did running backs the week prior. We're all the tight ends this week. It's a interesting room. Let's start with that. And it's allegedly or supposedly spearheaded by Elijah Lofton entering year 3 at Miami. The 6'3", 230-pound lineman or tight end from Bishop Gorman. 6'3", obviously he's undersized with that with his height, but he had a promising year 1. He was very, the versatility that I saw that Dawson was kind of using him with. I thought it was really exciting in year 1. I thought that he was almost kind of used as like a fullback or a running back. They used him sometimes on halfback dive for a touchdown. He would be used on, he seemed like almost like a jumbo because he has the size of a taller wide receiver, but a shorter tight end, but has the weight of a tight end. But he was also more agile, more fast, that he's able to be used as a running back or a fullback or something of that nature, where he can also give you a lot of different options. And year one, I thought he gave you a promising year: 9 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown under Elijah Arroyo. I thought he was poised to be kind of that replacement, and it would kind of fit seamlessly under Beck. And that didn't really happen. 23 catches, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 14 more catches and like only 70 more yards. So it was not a great year, I would say. There were a couple times where, I mean, I know obviously against Ole Miss, put his body on the line after like an 18-yard catch, which was a huge catch. And I believe he got hit really hard after that play. It was definitely a tough one, but I respect him for catching that ball. But if you were to remember, I think one thing about Lofton's season, you think of the Louisville game. Fourth quarter, Keontae Scott gives you the ball back on the fumble recovery after Beck throws his third pick. Miami gets the ball. They're driving down the field. They just need a field goal to tie, send it to overtime. Miami's playing for a touchdown, understandably. They're first and 10 from like the 20 or something like that. They're in the red zone with like 50 seconds left, and Carson Beck is expecting Elijah Lofton on a certain route, on a certain play, and no one's there. He gets picked off, fourth pick of the game over. Lose a heartbreaker against Louisville in a game you should have won. Beck throws 4 picks, bad game overall. But that last play is totally and easily avoidable if Elijah Lofton, which was said to us in the press box or in the press conference room, that a Beck saying, "Hey, Elijah was supposed to run a different route," and it was just a miscommunication and didn't work out. Something that ended up not working out big time for Miami because it led to that game, and then it led to the SMU loss was big, and you thought it was the end of the year, but he had he had his ups and downs for sure over the course of the year. You thought towards the end of the year there were going to be some positives because he was getting more touchdowns, he was getting more reps. I believe Virginia Tech, he had a pretty good game. He had 2 catches, 22 yards against Virginia and a touchdown against Virginia Tech. You thought that there were some more positives coming in, and it didn't really happen. Like, he had 1 catch for 15 yards against Ole Miss, and then he got hurt in that game. He didn't have a single catch against Ohio State, had 1 catch for 8 yards against A&M, 1 catch for 9 yards, and a touchdown against Pitt. Like, he just didn't get the usage that you thought he would get. He had 3 carries for 11 yards. It was just a weird year for him. I don't necessarily know if he slots into that role again as the head tight end, given his I guess his lack of height is not definitely a good thing for Miami. He's a decent blocker, but he wasn't the lead blocker. Alex Bowman was a lead blocker for the team. So you're going to either ask him to be a better receiving threat, or you're asking him to be a better blocker, maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. He's definitely more of a wild card for me than anything. And I can't necessarily guarantee that, come week 1 against Stanford, that he's the guy that's on the field, the first guy on the field. I can't guarantee you that. Again, we'll know more as we get into spring camp, which I've been talking about extensively because I'm really, really, really hoping we get there sooner rather than later. Next guy I'll talk about, Luka Gilbert, the 6'7" tight end that saw minimal playing time last year. I believe he played in the 2 blowout games, Bethune and I think maybe USF. He's got the 6'7" height, and he's very lanky. He definitely has the weight. He could have put on the weight to play offensive tackle. Miami forced him, or not, maybe not force. Wanted to use him as a tight end. Didn't play a whole lot. He's got the ability, I think, to be a backup tight end for next year's team. His height is ridiculous, and that's always going to be a factor. If he can have if he can be a good blocker, you're always going to be able to get playing time. If you're going to be a good receiver, maybe he can outplay some of the other guys, because there are a lot of good receiver type tight ends that Miami has on the team. But you need a guy in a perfect world. You have a guy that can give you a balance of being a very good blocker and then being a very reliable pass catcher. And Luka Gilbert, to me, looks like someone that can be a reliable pass catcher on, I don't know, a 5-yard route or something of that nature, that you need a safety blanket. Oh yeah, let me hit the 6'7" guy and give me a couple yards. Has a huge catch radius, obviously, can get low. He's also in high school, he was rated as a good blocker. He can finish plays through the whistle. Like he did play a lot of he did play tight end in high school. Now, that's an advantage over some of the guys that, didn't play nearly as much tight end, more was used as a receiver or played defense, something of that nature. I think he has the potential to take a starting role, but we're going to have to see in camp. The main guy I think that I'm the highest on is Gavin Muller, the 4-star tight end from out of high school in Illinois. 6'5", flipped from Colorado to Miami. In high school, he was used as a receiver type tight end with that 6'5" height. He had 30 touchdowns and produced over 1,100 yards of total offense. I don't necessarily know how much he was used a little bit as a blocker. He's not necessarily has the most extensive amount of reps playing even college football or high school football. He only played about 2 years in high school, I believe, because he played. I think he started varsity football junior year. But he had 30 touchdowns in his last year, school record. Guy is a freak athlete. I think he's a guy that if any of what he did as a kind of a Y type tight end that could turn routes into big gains, either whether it be a go route or kind of slipping out of the backfield to find soft spots in coverage, whether that be on a drag or a slant, something of that nature. Like I think he could be that kind of guy. He has obviously the length. He has speed. He's super explosive, has a ton of athleticism. And he was blocking a little bit against edge rushers in high school. One thing, obviously, that's going to help is the fact that you have a new tight end coach that's going to obviously emphasize the use of blocking. So if you already bring in the use of catching the ball and being a good receiver, being someone that's a safety blanket, security blanket for your quarterback, having a tight end coach and an offensive line coach is really going to help you be a really good blocker, makes you a really good dual threat guy. And I think a guy like Gavin Muller, to me, I think he's got a lot of what it takes to be the starting tight end. I'm not willing to say that, you'll see him on day one of spring camp and say, Gavin Mullen's the tight end. Gavin Mullen's the tight end. I can't say you that. But I can say that I think he has the tools and potential, obviously, of a lot of these guys because they're all elite talents coming out of high school. That they could be a guy and they could be someone for sure. Some of the other kind of notable ones, Cole McConaughey, if anyone knows, was the junior defensive end or the sophomore defensive end. And it's odd you're wondering why I'm mentioning him. He has announced that he's turning to play tight end. He has the frame and the size for it. He'd probably have to put on a little more weight, 6'5", 225. I'm intrigued to see how it would work out of him playing tight end. I don't know if he has any experience playing tight end. I believe he spent most of his career playing DN. Came out of high school as a DN. So let's see I'm intrigued to see what that could look like. It's an interesting storyline for sure. I think there were rumors of, some other guys on the team that were potentially playing tight end, which kind of tells you about where the tight end group was last year. Not great, I'll tell you that, where it felt like you could have a reliable tight end and say, you know what, I have this guy. He's going to be a great receiver or security blanket. Not really. They combined for between Bowman and Lofton combined for about 40 catches. Maybe, I think it was 41 catches if my math is right and about 390 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not the best, definitely not game changing, definitely not something that you could say was a positive on the season. Again, I thought if Alex Bowman maybe makes that block against Indiana, maybe we'd be sitting here as national champions. Who knows? I don't know that answer. I'm not going to put the blame entirely on Bowman, but that was, that was a game-changing play that did happen. Outside of that, there's Jackson Carver, the tight entering his redshirt junior year. He had some injury last year, 6'6", 250. I don't know. I mean, I think Jackson Carver's a guy that's been talked about a lot. Oh, maybe this year he'll play. Maybe this year. He has the experience, obviously, in Miami's system and his offense, but so does Lofton. I don't necessarily know if we're going to see much of him. And then the last guy I'll mention is the other recruit, the freshman that we're bringing in, Israel Briggs, the 4-star from tight end from California. He's around 6'4", 6'5", 200 pounds. Definitely going to need to put on some weight if he wants to play as a receiver in or plays a tight end in college or in college. He played a lot like a jumbo receiver in the jumbo packages in California, in high school in California. He has, I think he's probably a fantastic receiver and receiving threat because but he also he was not really asked much at all to block in high school. So he didn't really use it at all. He didn't really develop that kind of stuff. He was more of a guy that was going to be used as a probably a high point receiver that was needed for certain things. He's probably going to slot into tight end if he wants to get playing time. He has obviously athletic background. He's a three-sport athlete. Has the juice. He has the get off time. He's got a lot of that stuff. Dangerous after the catch, power and burst. Not very shifty, but he's a tight end. There's a lot of things that he could bring. I think he's an interesting guy. I think he's another piece that Miami has. I think it's deep is not necessarily the word I'd use for the tight end group. I would say potential is there. I think there's some needs that you can see. You're intrigued to see what Mike Vitti can bring as a tight end coach, what he can bring for the blocking unit. I'm intrigued definitely to see what the receiving threats are going to look like for that tight end group because Elijah Lofton, I keep mentioning, didn't have the year that you thought he was going to have. You're kind of asking maybe some of the freshmen to step up. There's not necessarily a guy that you can look at right now and say, this guy's going to be the starter and this guy's going to have a really good year. Because I said that about Lofton. I said Lofton was going to have a really good year too, and he didn't. So I can't necessarily give you a name or a player or a person that's going of that room that's going to kind of shock the world and be the guy. If there's a guy I'm most interested in that I think could be an intriguing piece, I'd say Gavin Muller, just because I think of his mix of it being a really good blocker, having 30 touchdowns in high school as a tight end is ridiculous. I think he's a guy that could potentially be a nice receiving threat and be a blocking threat for the team. So again, it's too early to tell. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you who I think it will be because I don't know. I haven't seen what the team looks like. It's all so early. It's all speculation. There's not a ton that we're privy to access of. It's a lot of the recruiting stuff and projections or what we're seeing with the transfer guys. That's kind of it. We're not able to kind of see what some of the freshmen are doing. If I could, I would tell you, hey, Darion Coleman's doing this. We don't know. But I am intrigued for what Miami will bring come spring football, come all of that stuff, which I'm very excited for. I think it's gonna be a great time. I'm very excited for what Miami's gonna bring. I'll post the chat one more time. Let's try to think about if there's anything else that we can mention. Talk about basketball again, how great they are. Shout out Jay Lucas. Probably if they're what I think would be very funny if we were a 7 seed and we were to play 10 seed Miami, Ohio. I think it'd be very funny. The Confusion Bowl. Winner gets to keep the name Miami. I think it'd be great. I think I'm just excited for the season. Like no matter what happens in the tournament, say they lose on opening, their opening match, or they, make it to the Sweet 16, whatever happens, you can look at a guy like Jay Lucas and say you have a guy there at head coach, and you have a roster that is worth competing every single year with their ability to spend in the portal. Some of the guys that they recruited at high school, whether it be Shelton Henderson or some of the guys coming next year. There's a lot of talent, and it seems like the Miami basketball program, which seemed to be kind of like almost when Larranaga stepped down and Bill Courtney, rest in peace, kind of took over for that year. It felt like Miami basketball was kind of going back to what it was back in like the mid 80s. Thankfully, it doesn't look like that with the way that Jay Lucas is handling it. And I love what he's done for the program and what he's doing for them. I'm hoping, if anything scares me, it's more that Jay Lucas gets poached by a blue blood basketball program and rips my soul out because he goes somewhere that he would would be an elite level coach for an elite level program. I think he's great. I want Miami to keep him for as long as possible. Be really thankful that you have him. And I've been saying that about any of Miami's coaches and coordinators. Be thankful that we have them for now because you don't know when you're going to lose them. You don't know when Jason Taylor or Corey Heatherman or Shannon Dawson or any of these guys are going to leave. You'd really be appreciative of what they've done for the program and what they're continuing to do right now, and be appreciative of it right now. Because if they go and you bring in someone else and they're not living up to that hype, you're going to say, damn, I miss that guy. And basketball, Jay Lucas has done a great job. The assistants he's brought around have been great. The talent he's brought in has been great. There's nothing you can really say more than, no matter what happens, it's an ginormous stepping stone for what this basketball program can look like. And I keep saying it, football's momentum is bringing it forward for the rest of Miami athletics, and you're hoping that continues as we get further and further. I mean, look at certain schools that are in debt right now, and it's they think that if they just continue to invest in football, things will change, and we haven't really seen that with FSU, Rutgers, Penn State, schools that are dead broke right now. I don't know. I'm very happy where Miami is right now, their situation, everything they've done, and what they've built over the last 2 years. You got to give Mario his flowers and everything that they've done. Again, one drive away from a national championship. It's unfortunate, but we're right there. We're right on the cusp of it. And yeah, I'm very proud of what they've done. And I'm excited for what the next couple of years Miami football looks like. So yeah. Again, considering the lack of people, but it's very fun. I'm happy to talk to you guys. Thank you for whoever is talking, showing up. I'm happy to be here and doing this stuff. But yeah, I appreciate anyone who tuned in. Just a short one again. Look, we'll get more and more deeper into it when we get more and more people involved, and football is back and feels good again. Obviously it's not right now. I get it. I understand it. But I do appreciate anyone who tuned in. I will not be back next week, and I don't know about the week after, but I hope everyone has a great time, a great day. Hopefully I'll see you guys whenever I see you guys. I appreciate anyone who tuned in. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.